UK Crime Book Club. I am absolutely thrilled to have you two with me tonight because we've so Fulton, Ross, Heather, Critchlow, hello.
Hi.
We have discussed your books already individually, so it'd be really nice to kind of hear both of your different ideas on different things tonight. So let's start properly. Fulton, would you like to show your book, please, and tell us a little bit about it?
Here we go. This is the cover. You can all see it there for The Unforgiven Dead. And it is a dark mystery that's set in the Scottish West Highlands, and it follows the story of Angus Dew McNeill, who has a painful secret, which is that he is a taisir, which is Gaelic for someone who has the second sight. Rather than a blessing, this is a curse he's had to bear since childhood when he saw his mother's murder before it happened. Subsequent murders have happened over the years, all of which he's tried to prevent, but ultimately failed. And when we first meet him, he is completely in denial about his dubious gift. He's self-medicating to try and stifle these visions that he's been having. But the drugs ain't working, to coin a phrase, and there's been another murder. The victim is the daughter of an American billionaire who owns the local estate, and she seems to have suffered a ritualistic murder. In her hand, she's found clutching a corp crea, which again is Gaelic for basically it's a Highland voodoo doll. So that's the setup, and as the book progresses, Angus must embrace this dubious gift or watch more horrific murders unfold.
And I'm glad you're the one pronouncing the name of the voodoo doll, because not my forte pronunciation of new words.
There's a website, you can learn Gaelic website. I think that'll give you all the translations and pronunciations, because I've used that a lot.
Heather.
Yes, so Unsolved is the first in the Cal Lovett series about a true crime podcaster who travels to Aberdeenshire to investigate the cold case of a missing woman who rode her horse into the woods 35 years ago and didn't come out. And it's a case that's really close to his heart because his own older sister, Margot, vanished when he was a child, and she hasn't been found either.
So I was just tagging people into the interview who have asked. So we let's start with congratulating you both on your nominations for the shortlist for the Scottish Debut Novel of the Year.
Thank you.
Congratulations. How do you find out about it, and how are you both feeling about it?
Yeah, so I found out with a call from my publishers, and I didn't know that I'd been put forward for it. So it was a really nice surprise. They just they sent me a message saying, "We've got some good news. Can we call you?" And I said, "Yes." So I got a call from Kate at Canelo, and she said, "We're really pleased this has happened, and it's just amazing." Beyond my wildest dreams, really, for the book. So it's been a lot of fun, and I think Fulton will agree that we're getting a lot of sort of support from the Bloody Scotland team, a lot more than I'd realised you would get. They've been doing all sorts of things to get our book's attention and to put us out there, and it's just been a really fun experience actually from start to finish.
No, absolutely, I would second that. I learned from a publicist. I knew I was being put forward for it, but I didn't really expect anything to come of it. So it was a lovely surprise. And yeah, it's great. I mean, to be in the same sort of company as Heather and Callum and Heather Derwent and Kate, it's amazing. I mean, I've read all their books now, and it's great to be in that company. So diverse, but just all fantastic. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I've really found that we're all so different, and I've really enjoyed that because I've had the sort of summer to read everyone else's books, and it has been really fun because I think we represent quite a diverse set of voices, the stories from and about Scotland, and yeah, that's really nice to be part of that little cohort.
We were talking about this last night with Craig Russell and Callum McSorley, and saying how they would not like the job of choosing because all of your books are so different. Haven't read them all yet. I think I've got 2 left, and there's just, I don't know how you would choose between them. I'm glad I don't have the job of doing it.
I think it makes it quite nice for us actually, because it doesn't really feel like we're being pitted against each other in any way. They're just very different books, and it's nice for us, I think, as well.
Yeah, no, I don't envy the judges at all.
So other than excellent books, which you both have, I love both of these books. I've recommended them so much. I'm just thinking about them. What's the criteria you have to meet to be entered into the prize? Is there a certain amount of time lived in Scotland, or are there certain criteria that you have to meet?
I think it changed slightly this year, didn't it? I think it used to be that you had to live in Scotland or be Scottish, maybe, or have. Yeah, but I think it's changed slightly now to make it slightly wider. Is that right, Heather? Or am I making it up?
I think it has, and I'm not sure. I had assumed it was stories sort of and from Scotland. So
yeah, it doesn't really matter so much about the nationality of the author per se.
Yeah.
Where they live, it used to. I think maybe there used to be something about where they live. But I'm in Northern Ireland, obviously. So it's not ruled me out.
I think it used to be 6 years that you had to have lived in Scotland for 6 years.
Right.
Okay.
I think was that Neil Lancaster might be the person who told me that. I should really write these things down beforehand.
Neil's probably lived in Scotland for about that length of time now, so maybe he'll be used for the Macadam.
So tell us a little bit about your main characters. So we've got Angus and we've got Cal. Obviously, there's a whole host of other characters that just fill these books with so many emotions. I was giggling. I'd read your books a while ago, so I've gone over them again this week. And what is the grumpy inspector called? Stout.
Stout, yeah, and my own, yeah, Inspector.
Oh, I love to hate that man.
Have a spin-off, I don't know.
Yes, how he became that grumpy.
He's just about to retire, so yeah, I could go back into Inspector Stout's younger days and find out why he was such a twat.
You could definitely do a short story or two, couldn't you?
No, he was great. He was good fun to write. But Angus, if you want to know about protagonists, he was really tough to write. He's kind of a tortured soul as it is, but he's also, because he suffers from these visions. It was really difficult to make them seem, not sort of hackneyed or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was tough to get that right. Many drafts to try and make it seem very grounded. He's there's a lot. You had to get a lot of emotion in Angus, and that's quite tough sometimes. Writing the emotional aspect of a character, really digging down in to try and find out exactly what's making him tick. So that was difficult. I found that difficult.
I really love Angus. I love the sort of tortured soul side of him, and then the kind of practical, having to get out there and solve things, and the two halves kind of meeting together.
I think I said this somewhere else, or maybe, but I don't think it was in this first time round. But he was when I was thinking of Angus originally, I was thinking of the Scottish porridge oats guy. There's an advert for Scottish porridge oats when I was growing up, and it had this big, really sort of hunky man in it. I really was making this big sort of hunky man, so that was who I kind of based him on. But then, obviously, he's kind of a torture character, so he's not just a big beefcake.
He's got extra dimensions to his character.
Yeah. He doesn't wear a kilt at all, actually, but maybe I should have had him wear a kilt.
I don't know, what would it take to get Angus into a kilt? That is the question.
I don't know if in the first draft, one of the first drafts, I had him in a kilt. I think it was a wedding, and there was a bit of a romance thing going on there. Someone was trying to seduce him. That was a scene that was cut. I mean, lots of scenes were cut, and it was a completely different book then. But yeah, he was in a kilt at that point, and there was a kind of steamy scene, which thankfully was cut.
Heather, what about Cal?
Yeah, so Cal is, I guess, in a way, a tortured soul as well. But he's been living with the disappearance of his sister, and it's kind of cast this shadow over his whole life. But he's got on with it. At the beginning of the book, we meet him. He's married. He's got a teenage daughter who he's very close to. But everything is starting to unravel for him. He's received letters from the Woodland Killer, who is a kind of Peter Sutcliffe type character who's in Broadmoor Hospital and has never granted interviews before, and he agrees to be interviewed by Cal, and it turns out that he knows sort of a little bit more about Cal than Cal expects. So that is the beginning really of Cal's unraveling, and that unraveling kind of leads him to Scotland and to investigate the cold case of this missing woman who reminds him very much of his sister, because she is a woman very much ahead of her, was a woman very much ahead of her time. She was feisty and a bit difficult and independent, and she didn't have many opportunities. And his own sister was very strong and independent and quite kind of held back by their parents. And there was a big age gap between them, so sort of 10 years between him and his older sister. So when she vanished, he was only 9 years old, and she was almost another mother figure to him, and certainly a big influence. And I think a lot of his relationships with women and are very good relationships, and they're sort of come from that early relationship with his sister. And yeah, unfortunately his marriage isn't doing quite so well, but his relationship with his daughter is very strong.
I want to go back to Bloody Scotland, because obviously this is a huge part of the reason that you've come back and joined us tonight. You've all met each other. So what was that like? Did you all meet, all of the long list, short list, did you all meet on the same day, or?
Yeah, there was a launch, I think it was in June or July.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all went to the big fancy launch. And yeah, I think the organisers were pleased, because every one of the debut authors were there. I don't think they often get every single one of them there. So yeah, it was brilliant. We met the most of the people who were on the long list. There was a few sort of absences, but yeah, it was great. It was at the Golden Lion in Stirling, where most of Bloody Scotland, or the sort of the main place where Bloody Scotland is based. So it was excellent. We got our photo taken. You got to sort of hobnob with some of these really well-known authors. It was quite daunting in a way, but it was nice to actually be with other debuts as well, because they were in the same sort of boat. So I think we all got on pretty well,
Yeah, it was really lovely. You kind of feel like you've got a sort of bond to start with, I suppose, being on the list. And Bloody Scotland has 2 launches. It has one in Stirling, and then it has one in London as well. And I was quite lucky to be able to do both, because I live sort of within striking distance of London, but I was and I was able to time a trip up to see my mum in Scotland and to visit a few bookshops for the Stirling launch. And yeah, they were both a lot of fun. And there was a sort of book launch after the Stirling one as well, the latest Ambrose Parry book. So we all sort of sat and listened to that as well, which was really fun.
Yeah.
Wonder how all the regulars feel about being kicked out of the Golden Lion when everyone just descends upon Stirling.
I think Stirling's quite receptive to, the thing I love about Bloody Scotland is that it does kind of take over Stirling, and there's different venues and you kind of walk between them, and so it doesn't feel like you just go to a city and you're in one hotel and you don't really get to see anything of it. You do the torchlit procession from the castle down through the streets, and the Bloody Scotland team really encourage you to go out and see Stirling and to visit the castle and things as well. So it does fit. I like it for that reason. It's definitely one of my favourite events.
Yeah, and there's also the Scotland v England football match, which is the main reason that I'm interested in. Writers be the English Crimer, so I've kind of begged to be part of the team this year, and I think I've been brought in as a ringer. So I'm taking my boots.
I would be absolutely shocking. No good at football.
You could spectate. There's quite enough players who take it very seriously, I think.
Then I would drive them all insane. We've got hellos. I'm enjoying myself so much that I'm sorry we've not even said hello to anyone yet. So hello to everyone who's watching so far. Steve over in America. Hello, lovely Steve. He's working his way through the debut list with 2 completed, and both have been great. So that was Squeaky Clean and The Unforgiven Dead, which is one of his favourite books this year.
Thanks very much. That's brilliant.
He loves Angus and Gil, and Gil's another great character. Love the relationship between he and Angus. Somebody said, oh yeah, Kaz is saying there's 10 years between her and her brother as well. Quite a large age gap between me and my brother as well. So yeah, I found that really interesting actually. And Steve has just got your book, Heather, and we'll be reading it later this week. Steve, you will love it. Oh my word.
Steve.
Yeah.
So are you taking part in any of the events at Bloody Scotland this year? Where can people see you?
Well, we're all taking part in the debut panel, which I think is at 5 or 6 o'clock. I'll have to check.
I think it's 5 on the Friday.
5 on the Friday in the Central Library, perhaps?
Yes. Yes. And it's free.
Yep. So that'll be good. That'll be great. I was lucky enough, before actually the shortlist was announced for the debuts, I was on a panel. I was lucky enough to go onto a panel with Alex Gray's New Voices. So there's myself, Joe Callahan, who wrote Blink of an Eye, Alex Hay, and just one more, Martin Griffin. I've also read all their books, so they're just fantastic, very diverse again. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that's at 1:30 in Trinity Church on the Friday again. So yeah, I get them both out of the way on the Friday, and then I can kind of relax for the Saturday and yeah, chill out, play football.
Highly recommend getting it out of the way early. Yeah. Heather.
Yes, so I'm just doing the debut panel, which is the one that Fulton's mentioned, which 4 of us will be there. I don't think Heather Darwin can make it, unfortunately, but we'll be on that panel. And then I think we take part in the torchlit procession and to the Albert Halls in the evening after that. But yeah, I'll be there for the whole weekend, sort of enjoying the other panels and hanging out with writers and readers, and really looking forward to it.
Go home a little bit early on Friday due to flights and stuff like that. So there's a couple of panels that I'd really like to go to on the Sunday rather. But unfortunately, I'm going to miss a couple of those. But yeah, I've got my program out and everything that I want to ticked. But I think from last year, I tried to go to too many panels. I went to loads and loads, and I was almost got panel overload. So yeah, I think you pick and choose the ones that you really want to go to. Just enjoy it, soak in the atmosphere as well.
I really like the pitch panel. I went to that last year, so I might try and get to that again if I can, where there's about 10 authors pitching, 10 writers pitching their stories. That's really brave.
I don't end them at all.
I know.
I just sit and watch them squirm.
It's quite amazing, really. But I think lots of people get book deals and agents off the back of it, so it's definitely Kate Foster did.
Maiden, yeah. I think that your favourite book last year, Kaz, The Maiden. I'm pretty sure it was very, very high on Kaz's list. The Maiden,
it really is
so much. Yeah, I do like a historical novel. It was just brilliant.
So you like historical novels?
I am a fan of historical novels, like S.G. McLean's Bookseller of Inverness. That was one of my favourite sort of historical novels in the last few years. But yeah, I'm a Hilary Mantel fan and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I do enjoy a historical novel. I kind of try and weave. I'm kind of inspired by history. A lot of history is kind of woven into The Unforgiven Dead. So yeah, I'm an ex-historian. That's what I studied at university, as well as Scottish literature. So yeah, it all sort of appeals to me.
Yeah.
Kaz is saying The Maiden's a favourite this year so far. Do you remember, Fulton, the irony of the statement I'm about to make when I said my memory's terrible?
Yes.
But then I remember telling you that my memory's terrible, so maybe it's improving.
It's just exploding now.
She said it's Fighting with the Treatment by S.C. Moorhead, the top spot.
Okay.
So, Lessons in Chemistry was Kaz's last year. Mine actually last year was, and it's at the side of me, and I'll show it because it's another Scottish author, was The Storytellers by Karen McKinley.
All right,
gorgeous book. So seeing as it's at the side of me, we'll give her a quick plug for another Scottish author. I think Scottish authors often feature quite highly on my lists. There must be something about you all. There's a certain magic I find with Scottish authors. There's just something that you can weave into a story. And obviously the setting will always add atmosphere when it's done as beautifully as you two do it. But there's something. What is it? Are you all drinking the water in Scotland? What is it about you?
I think it's Scotland. I think Scotland's a very inspiring place. It's such a beautiful country and such rich kind of heritage and landscape, and it's quite easy to be inspired by it. Like where I grew up in the foothills of Benahee in Aberdeenshire is just a really magical place. I honestly think the sky is bigger there than some other places, and it's quite easy to write very enthusiastically about those hills and those woods and things. So yeah, I do think there's a bit of magic in Scotland anyway. So that's probably where it comes from.
I think we're lucky as well in that we've got some great predecessors to really draw on. Lots of my references, I know lots of people would say they're inspired by books from their childhood, but the first sort of books that really touched me were there were Ian Rankin, Val McDermid, Christopher Brookmeyer, Denise Mina. There's a host of really good writers that emerged sort of round about 2000s, sort of late noughties, not late 90s, early noughties. So yeah, you had all these great writers to draw on, and it wasn't just crime. They were not basic crime novels. They explored lots of really serious issues and really stylishly as well. And of course, you've got with William McIlvanney as well with Laidlaw. everyone points to that as being one of the first books that really set the tone for the genre. I read that a bit later, so my first sort of baptism with the Scottish crime writing was Rankin and McDermott and stuff like that. But yeah, there's great predecessors and there's a great tradition that's kind of been established over the last 20 years. So I think that kind of inspires us.
Yeah.
Craig Russell was saying last night that Laidlaw is his favourite Scottish book. So it's obviously one that I need to read.
Yeah, they all three are great. I just recently read the papers of Tony Veitch. Is that what it is? I think it's the third one in the series, and it's just amazing. Like, sometimes I don't really know what McIlvanney's talking about because he's really quite sort of. But it's just lovely the way he writes. Like, I quite often find myself rereading paragraphs of McIlvanney just because it's just such beautiful prose, and I very rarely do that with writers. But sometimes you say that's just such a well-turned sentence.
Yeah, I love like Louise Welsh and Karen Campbell. Louise Welsh's Plague Times trilogy actually is a favourite of mine. I really devoured that, and that's just it's such a powerful set of books. I really do love those.
I met Louise Welsh. She was studying at Glasgow University as well. I think she's probably doing the creative writing course, but I met her. We were both doing a little job. It was basically we went out to these sort of schools in Glasgow and kind of encouraged them to go to university, and I sort of spoke to Louise a couple of times, said, "Oh, how are you doing?" She said, "Oh yeah, I'm writing a book." I said, "Oh, that's great. Didn't really think much of it." Then a few years later, The Cutting Room came out. Just writing a wee book where stuff the last sort of 20 years, you know.
Amazing book.
It's really funny that Fulton, you mentioned Laidlaw. Heather, you were talking about Louise Welsh, and last night they were the exact two authors that the authors discussed.
That's really great. So it's interesting how somebody in the comments has just said Paper Cut by Karen Campbell, and yes, that's definitely Karen's most recent book is just incredible. Absolutely, you should read it. She started off very much in the police. She used to be a police officer, so I was on a course with her at Moniac Moor, the Scottish Creative Writing Centre, and she was brilliant for that. And then Paper Cup is just the most gorgeous book. It really is. If you haven't read it, I'd recommend it very highly.
So you're adding more books to this stack.
I will read
it. Laura's saying she can't decide which book to read first. She's going to have to do a lucky dip.
That's a good idea. Put all the names in a hat and pick one out.
Put all the books out on the bed and kind of mix them up, cover your eyes and just, pick one out.
Or get a dog or a cat to choose, something like that.
Well, my book starts on Samhain, so that's the pagan festival that came out on Halloween. So I would say that would be a good book to read around about October time.
If you really want to freak yourself out.
Yeah, there's definitely something about the atmosphere that you've set in that book that works rather well any time of year, but I can imagine it being really scary to read around October.
Yeah, it's funny. You wouldn't really expect to read it on a beach. It's maybe not a beach read, but sometimes if you're on a beach and you're sweating, you do want to be taken somewhere entirely different. So I don't know.
But actually, the beach scenes in your book are so powerful. I can really see them. There's definitely snippets that really stay with you, like the tree that you describe, and the castle with its secrets and things. I won't spoil anything, but it's got very evocative settings, your book.
Thanks very much. Well, it's quite similar to yours in that mine's sort of West Helmsby, yours is Cairngorms. I love that sort of dual timeline in your book as well, where you have the woman character who goes missing and you have it from her point of view. And then you sort of, there's different sorts of settings there. You've got this sort of urban setting as well, where Cal lives. Then you've got the Cairngorms, which is, it's beautifully described as well. So I loved that.
Yeah, I needed to do the dual setting really, because I think something that interests me about true crime podcasts is, are you getting the truth when somebody goes back 30, 35 years after the case and people start talking? Why are they talking? What incentive do they have now that they didn't have then? And so I really wanted to be able to see kind of the truth, the reader can see the truth, and also what Cal is discovering along the way as well.
Yeah, that community that you describe as well, sort of in both in the earlier part and in the later part, that rang really true to me. That sort of closed community. That kind of really hit the mark, I think.
I think it's communities like that are so interesting because people depend on each other quite a lot. You know, when the weather comes in and the roads are blocked and the snow's there, you kind of depend on your neighbours to help you. But at the same time, you know, people have secrets and rivalries and, you know, difficult relationships to handle within that mix. And it's not like you're in a big city and you can kind of just go and find a whole new set of people and not interact with people that you don't get on with. You have to find a way to live together and help each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My second book's going to be set in Barra, so it's got a very small community as well. So it's going to be kind of that idea comes into play that there's things that happen there that are kind of brushed under the carpet a wee bit, and it's kind of because they have to live with each other, so they kind of have to make allowances to a certain extent.
Yeah, islands are so brilliant for novels.
Absolutely. I was on a panel with Carol Johnson, who set her book, The Black House, on Lewis, and that's excellent. That's got a very sort of claustrophobic feel, kind of dark and scary as well, but really pretty cool.
It's like Chris Brookmeyer's The Cliff House as well as a recent one, isn't it? That's
right. That was set on an island. That's a fictional one, just sort of supposed to be just sort of south of Barra, I think. Yeah. That was fun. That book, I loved it. I love Chris Brookmeyer anyway, but yeah, I really liked that book.
Yeah.
So Heather, Cal love that there's going to be a trilogy.
At least, yeah. So number 2 is out in January the 18th. It's called Unburied, and so hoping to have a cover reveal this week, maybe.
Excellent. Happy to give you permission to share that in the book club when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. And then the third one will be out next September, so I'm working on that at the moment. But I'm not sure that Cal's story is quite going to be finished then. So we are talking about whether there's more. So we'll see. To be confirmed.
That's magic. I can't wait to read the second one. That's going to be Unburied. Did you say it was called?
Yeah. And that's set more on the West Coast. It's like a fictional Plockton/Shield Peninsula kind of place.
Yeah, I know that area. It's nice. Very nice area.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So no, I'm looking forward to that coming out. It feels a while since I finished it at the beginning of this year. So and my head isn't very much in the third one. So it will be nice to have that one come out and have a chance to be written.
Yeah. I'm hoping to write 3. I'm pretty much finished the first draft of the second one, which is going to be called The Archer's Ghost. But it's like I've already got 150,000 words, so I'm going to have to get out the chainsaw and start hacking.
Wow, that's a serious amount of words.
It's got a kind of embedded narrative. I can't say too much, but yeah, it's got this sort of embedded narrative, which I'm really quite excited about people reading. So yeah, it's going to be cool.
Amazing! I can't wait. Do you have a date for that coming out?
No, thankfully, my publisher doesn't put too much pressure on me, so I don't really feel under any.
When it's ready.
To a certain extent, I mean, you did ask, when can I expect the first sort of draft or whatever. But yeah, there's not no great deal of pressure. But there is, I suppose, once you have one book out, you're trying to produce one every year to 18 months. So yeah, there is that sort of at the back of my mind that I have to really dig in, work hard, and try and get this at least out for next year at some point.
Yeah, I think sort of Canello's model is with series fiction to try and do them quite quickly because readers kind of like to get into a series and then get more. But yeah, I suppose I did struggle a little bit with this third book deadline because the second book was written before the first one even came out, so I didn't have any of the kind of noise, which has all been really nice, but it does slow you down a little bit, I think. So publicizing the first book, editing the second one, and then trying to write the third one at the same time became a bit much on top of the day job and everything and the kids and the dog. But Canello are great, and we just slightly moved it. So
are you still working as well? Are you?
Yeah.
So you have a day job. See, I'm lucky in that my day job is looking after the kids and running after them.
That's quite hard though. That can be harder than. So I'm self-employed. I do corporate writing for businesses that I used to write about when I was a journalist. So it's very flexible. I'm very lucky, and I work largely from home, and it's sort of up to me to get it done. But I'm not sort of tied to set times. It's very compatible with writing. It's just when everything comes at once, it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you think your lives leading up to you actually sitting down to write your first books have impacted the actual book that comes out? Because as you say, I mean, you've talked already about how busy you both are, young families and trying to manage everything. But obviously with your previous careers, that must have had some impact on how the book is written from all of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Both my Heather and myself are sub-editors, I think, or we were in our former life.
My
Yeah,
first journalism job was.
Yeah, sub-editing is a great sort of introduction into writing. So you're handling copy every day.
Yeah.
You're eventually you get to see what a good sentence is, and that definitely helped. Certainly my writing. I mean, I only started writing when I was 30, so I probably spent most of my 20s lacking the confidence and the belief to do it. I look back often wish I just given it a crack, but I think because I was a sub editor for sort of 10 years, I finally, I got the nuts and bolts of it down, and I thought, yeah. So I hit 30 and thought, yeah, let's just give it a bash. But I suppose everyone's different. Sometimes you just have to find the right time to do stuff like that. I mean, whether you're 17 or whether you're 30 or 40, it doesn't. As long as you do it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing my first novel when I was 17, and I did it in secret. I just wrote in secret for years and years. And I did send that first novel off to some agents in my very early 20s and was sort of very much rejected. And it really, I wouldn't want to go back and read that novel. But I suppose it taught me that I could do it and I could get to the end. At that stage, it was very much is this even possible? Can I do this? And I was just doing kind of 250 words a day, and I was doing it longhand, and then I would type it up in an internet cafe. I was traveling for a bit, so I'd go to an internet cafe and pay my £3 or whatever, and then I would sort of type it up. But I was just very embarrassed by my writing. I wouldn't have told people, I wouldn't have shared it. It took me quite a long time to have the confidence to be able to talk to people about it and to put my writing out there. And I think probably journalism helped quite a lot with that, because I never had an issue being edited on my journalism words. And never had a problem with that at all. And maybe that sort of teaches you that, it is all in the editing. And I really enjoy the editing part much more than the first drafting part. Once I've got a first draft, I'm happy, because I know then I've got a thing that I can make better. And I overwrite. So it sounds like, Fulton, you might overwrite
just a little bit.
So I do really enjoy cutting. It's very satisfying when you've kind of got something that you think, well, I don't need that entire chapter.
So much better to cut, though, than to fill. Nobody wants to be filling.
It's not very efficient, though, I think. So I have friends who write, their first draft would be about 65,000 words, and then they'll end up with an 80,000 word book. Whereas I probably end up writing about 100,000 words to get an 80,000 word book. So I can't decide whether I'm happy. I just do it. I don't think you can choose. That's the thing. You just write how you write, and you've got to work around that. And everybody is so different.
I think certainly with this book, you kind of, to a certain extent, with Dumber Day as well, you kind of threw everything at it, and you kind of see what sticks in a way. So there's different sort of plot lines. Maybe you lose a plot line, or you maybe lose a whole character, or various plot lines, and then you just sort of distill it down to the best bits, I suppose. That's kind of how I work anyhow.
Are both books drastically different to the first draft? Because Fulton, you hinted at it being things being cut out of it that you're kind of glad were removed, and things that have changed. Is it massively different?
Hugely different, and hugely better, thanks to the work of my editor and me. Obviously, I've put in a lot of work as well. But I think this book was chosen as a winner of Inkshares, a Californian publishing company. So I entered a competition in 2018, and it was chosen as one of the winners. And it was a full manuscript at that point. It wasn't a partial or anything. But after the editor came back to me, I probably changed maybe 85% of it for the second draft.
It's a vast,
then 45% for the third draft, and then the subsequent drafts it became less and less and less, until eventually you were just doing little tweaks or doing the sort of, you always compared it to a piece of furniture, and then you're just adding the little details to it. So that was kind of how it worked. But huge changes between the first and the second draft in particular. The first draft, it was kind of written, there wasn't actually any supernatural in it, although Angus had second sight. I suppose that was kind of supernatural, but there was more of I provided more of a sort of realistic explanation for some of the murders and whatnot. So I wasn't really leaning quite as heavily into the supernatural, and it was the second draft was very much about bringing out that supernatural. Because if Angus is a Pisces, if he does have second sight, then you're asking the reader to sort of lean into the idea that the supernatural is real. So you sort of draw that out a little bit and a lot in the second draft, and over subsequent drafts as well.
So mine, by the time it got its deal, it didn't change a great amount at all. But it went through quite a lot of iterations with my agent and with kind of other. I won an auction that was the auction for vaccines, and so the author Caroline Green had offered up a manuscript read as one of her. As one of the lots on the auction, and I bid for that and won that, and she was amazing. She was really helpful. But even before then, I'd had quite a lot of to and froing with my agent and with author friends and my writing group, who were just really helpful. And it did change quite a bit. The original, who it was and why all changed. I think probably there's a real debut element of this, and that maybe my book isn't quite as neat in some ways, that I won't sort of point them out. I sort of think, wow, if I was starting it all over again, would I do it exactly the same? Maybe, maybe not.
I don't think anybody would, though.
No, but then I've definitely learned a lot from the process. And also I've found, particularly because this is a series, that's the model for my series. So the second book is very much, it's 2 points of view, present and past with the victim and Cal. It's structured in a very similar way, but I've definitely learned, I think it's probably a little bit faster paced than the debut. I'm not sure, we'll see what readers think when they get to read it, but you definitely do become aware of the feedback that you're getting from reviews and things. And I think that possibly made it a little bit difficult for a few months when the book came out to try and write without those voices in my head, because even when they're compliments and love, and most of it was, to be honest, it was mostly nice, but there was some constructive criticism in amongst all of the comments on reviews, and you think, gosh, yeah, maybe I'd do that. Maybe do I want to do that? Should I slightly alter that? So I think it's a really useful process of questioning, but at a certain point you have to kind of go, right, let's just get the first draft done and then worry about that later.
Steve said Fulton was taken by the atmosphere of The Unforgiven Dead. Reading it felt like becoming submerged in the ocean. The book just takes over you as you read it. Steve Munoz. I know, his reviews are so beautiful.
That's so nice to hear, because it's kind of is a love letter to the Highlands. That's kind of the area where I was brought up. But it's difficult. You don't want to make it overly sentimental or romanticize it too much. But you still want to almost create a kind of mythic landscape as well. So I tried to keep it to what I know, and it's kind of a gift, that area to write about. So I was lucky in that respect.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about was you tackle things that, would we maybe call them uncomfortable truths? Victim shaming comes up, and a lot of people are maybe blamed for things that aren't their faults. And that it's quite a difficult subject to read, even when it's handled as beautifully as you both handle everything. Some of the themes are difficult, though. So when you must get asked this sometimes, living with those things day to day, how do you choose which themes you can comfortably switch off from at night? That you're living inside this character's head for a year or however long it is that the writing, the edits, then coming back for interviews and talking about it. How do you decide where the line is?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think when I was writing Unforgiven Dead, it's the first thing you think about in the morning, the last thing you think about when you go to sleep, especially if you've got a sort of problem that you're trying to solve, and that can become quite frustrating. But it's all in your head, isn't it? So I don't really let it affect my day-to-day interactions or anything like that. I've actually found that writing the second book, I can kind of, I'm still thinking about it before I go to bed and wake up in the morning, but it's not overtaking my life or anything like that. So I'm quite good at kind of compartmentalizing these things, I think.
So my cases, actually in both the first and the second books, and the third really, are sort of drawn from things in the news or things in current affairs that have, there's a little bit of this over here, there's a bit of that over there. And actually writing it in a way is quite cathartic, because I think a lot of what Layla's character is the experience of women. And it's quite nice to write that and to get some of that kind of anger and, about the way that women have historically been treated and sometimes still are treated. And it's, I don't know, I didn't find it difficult. I think because it's all within your control. It's not like, and you can kind of turn it on and off a bit. There are definitely subjects I wouldn't want to write about because they would just haunt me a little bit too much. I think for me, it's more that I do listen to true crime podcasts, and I find them, the ones that I enjoy most do haunt me. They're the ones that really make me think. They're the ones that take you to often a small community with a victim that's really been forgotten about. And they give them a voice, and they give the family and the people left behind a voice. And I do have to sometimes limit how much I listen to those things, because it does get inside your head and it's there, and you take it in, and it's dark, and there are horrible things in the world, and not every podcast ends with a nice, neat conclusion where they find the killer. Sometimes they just left hanging and they have suspicions, or the suspect has died, and you can't. Some of them could go on for years. They go back and they revisit with new evidence, and so they can be so frustrating that, you're right, you need to sort of protect yourself a little bit, I think. But I don't really find that with my own writing. It doesn't upset me.
And you both deal with justice in different ways. So whether it's police, whether it's, again, like we were saying about the victims, closure for the families. I think closure is such an important thing in whatever form it takes. And that's something that obviously sadly doesn't happen a lot in real life. Is it a satisfying thing to be able to find closure in various respects, even when it's not complete closure and it's not maybe the way that people would like the closure to be? Being able to have that satisfying element to the book, is that important to you?
Oh yeah, I think it's kind of key. And a lot of people tend to think that crime writing is this kind of anarchic form, but it's actually quite conservative. Generally speaking, you're going to get the baddie's going to get his comeuppance in the end, in one way, shape, or form. And you're right. What's satisfying, I think, is the thing that I discussed a lot with my editor. Is this a satisfying ending? It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be. The baddie's sent to jail or anything like that, or he's killed. Is this satisfying for the reader? That was what we were really asking ourselves. And like I say, it doesn't have to be, a conventional form of justice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you don't have to have it all neatly tied with a bow and the bad guy gets arrested, and it does just have to not be. But there are books that are quite bleak at the end and do it so well, and they really do strike at you and stay with you. But they're very clever, some of the ways, and it's hard to name them because it sort of gives away the ending a little bit of those books, so I can think of a couple of recent ones where the ending has been very bleak, but very well done and right for the book. So but I think in the Cal books, Cal's ongoing personal story isn't necessarily fully resolved. It isn't going to be fully resolved. So there have to be moments of resolution for him on a bigger journey, and then I think the case itself has to have a satisfying ending.
My book would be very similar. There's sort of plot lines that are going to be resolved across hopefully the trilogy. Within that there's the other plot lines that are going to be resolved within the one book. I hope readers don't mind that.
Yeah, and I don't know, I quite like the poignant, life doesn't always go the way you want it, endings. They are some of the darkest endings are the ones that have stayed with me. So I don't mind, but then your heart does break for the characters. So yeah.
As long as it's not a Game of Thrones ending where everyone hates it.
Everyone dies in a bloodbath, then
Kaz really loves the bleak book. This is something that we talk about quite often I can't think of any off the top of my head. I know that she's just a huge fan of it, whereas I find it a bit more challenging. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but I don't feel the same way about it necessarily that Kaz does. Leslie's saying she likes the bleak ending. You're all just kind of, I'm missing something. And Leslie says she does like the baddies to get away sometimes, though, so it's not predictable. I always say that I really like it when I can't trust the author not to kill the people that I really love. Because if I know that you're going to kill off a character that you really don't want to kill off, but you know it's right for the story, then I know that I can trust you to tell it. I always find that fascinating. Is there anything that you really look for to leave your readers with, a kind of a sense of something?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, sense of wanting more, I suppose, would be the best answer.
Good start, yeah.
Follow your characters, and there are books that stick with you, aren't there? Some books, you just maybe slightly disposable, you just put them aside. And, okay, that was kind of meh, but you want a sense of the tone of it, and maybe the sense of place or the atmosphere just to linger a bit, hopefully in a good way. And just them to buy into the characters and really start to see them as real people, who they really want to spend more time with in the future. So that'd be what I would hope for.
Yeah, to have people react to your characters and grow to love or hate them, depending, what kind of character they are, is really rewarding. It's really amazing because these people have just been inside your own head, and especially for a debut when you're not used to being read, and actually wrote the book probably without the expectation that it would ever really be read. It is rewarding, and I think it's quite useful. Sometimes in my writing group or with other authors, we'll swap books and then write comments on the way through. And I have had a couple in the writing group before of, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. I'm never going to speak to you again if you do this to this. Because there's so much space of what they think is this character. And it's quite useful then to see, okay, what's the reader's experience going to be as they do that.
You ever attempted to...
Oh, sorry,
no,
just
go on. No, go on.
No, very briefly, I was just going to say, you probably want the reader to be a bit disappointed that it's ended. I always love to come to the end of a book and then you go, oh, it's finished. That's such a shame. I want to just keep reading it, whatever.
Are you ever tempted to change it? I worked with an author recently and I knew that if I said, oh, please really don't kill off this character yet, even though it was the right thing, I think they might have made some changes, but it was so the right thing for the book. But it must be such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, something quite difficult happens to Cal in the third book. And when I did send it to the publisher, like one of the contacts there said, I can't believe you're doing this, but you need to, it's that exact same thing. I think it's fine when you have a clear sense of where the story is going and why you're doing it. I think you kind of like, well, sorry, but he can't have an easy life. It would be a boring book.
I think there's quite a major character that I don't know whether I'm going to kill him off, him or her, could either. I don't know whether I'm going to do it in the next book, but yeah, they're definitely going to have to be done in at some point, I think.
Oh my gosh, I have my suspicions about you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, after this.
I need to ask you when it's a spoiler on, so I can't.
No. I had a name that was straight in my head as well, and I don't know. It's such a tricky one. It's such a tricky one to know.
Well, you have to put your main characters through the ringer. That seems to be an awful lot of books. That seems to be what the author thinks is, how am I really going to torture this character in this book? It's often one of the ways to go about it. Just think, what would be the worst thing that could happen to this character? And then from there, try and resolve it somehow.
Have either of you been able to go back to areas that you've written about recently? Obviously, we've had some difficult times where travel wasn't an option. But obviously, if it's somewhere that you grew up or that you lived over a decade ago, have you managed to go back and kind of look at it?
Yeah.
And are there places that you could recommend that readers could visit?
Well, yeah, I think readers should go to Benihee in Aberdeenshire. It's a beautiful hill. And I went back recently, about 2-3 weeks ago with my children, and I was going to visit some bookshops and some relatives who are in the area. My grandmother is there and my mum is up that way. And so we met up, and there's a waterfall in the book that is based on a waterfall that I stumbled upon when I was a teenager in the foothills of Benihee. And it has a little folly, kind of a stone folly, and then this beautiful waterfall just on the edge of Benihee. And it's not really marked on the maps. You can if you do a little bit of sleuthing online, you can find directions to try and get there. But because of all the storms, there's just tens of thousands of trees have come down in the area and have kind of shut off the waterfall. And so a year ago, I went and found it, and it took me hours. And in the end, I had to climb up the hill, find a river, climb back down until I found it. And so this time it was a bit easier, but I managed to get my children and my mum. But we had to climb over all sorts of things, and I knew exactly where it was, but it was still very hard to get to. And we had to climb over and under trees. We had to get down kind of steep banks. And yeah, we all did it, and I took them there, and it's really fun. And then I showed them where I grew up and everything. So it's really nice to go back.
Yeah, I've been back a couple of times. Probably don't go back to the Highlands as much as I should. My folks probably think I've gone missing, but yeah. It's like the book's set around sort of the West Highlands, around about Arisaig and Moore. It's a fictional village called Glenruadh, which is based on Glenruadh. So just add an R in there. Glenruadh's a lovely wee village. It's just really picturesque, and it's kind of famous in folk music circles. It's got a really nice village hall where there used to be lots of concerts, and yeah, Highland Games there was always legendary. There was always shenanigans going on there. Yeah, no, I would, if you get a chance to visit that area, but it's become very busy recently with sort of because it's one of these sort of go-to areas for camper vans. It's often very, very busy, but some of the beaches there are beautiful. And I also visited Barra recently. That's just to do some research for the second book, and it's the first time I've ever been to the Outer Hebrides. Barra was an amazing place, just sort of otherworldly in a way. You see these beaches that look like they should be in the Caribbean, but they're in the middle of the Atlantic. So yeah, very windy, but just another beautiful place. And the airplane lands in the beach as well. One of the only places I think maybe even in the world where an airplane lands in the beach. So it's cool.
Wow, that is very cool.
It sounds absolutely amazing. To my shame, I am yet to visit Scotland. I know.
You need to start with bloody Scotland and move on from there.
I shall. Sadly, not this year, but next year.
Yeah.
Next year, I'm making it a personal goal to actually manage to get to Scotland, to bloody Scotland. Do you have, I know you said that you're both going to try and do some things while you're at bloody Scotland. A favourite panel or author that you're looking to watch or meet?
I'm a big fan of Craig Russell. I think that's actually one of the ones that I'm going to miss on Sunday, so I'm really disappointed about that. But I'll get him to sign one of his books for me. So yeah, I'd like to go to that one, the Craig Russell one. Yeah, there's loads of other ones. I think Denise Mina and people like that. These are the ones I would like to go and see. And
Denise as well, who I was going to say I just love listening to Denise Mina. She's amazing.
And I might try and take in some of the ones I don't know so well, just to see what they're like, just to keep in with the sort of up and coming sort of writers.
We have got 4 minutes left. Would you like to give us a recap of your books, and then we will send you off with good wishes?
Okay, will I go, or do you want to go, Heather?
No, go for it.
Okay, so this is my book. This is The Unforgiven Dead. It's set in the Scottish West Highlands, and it follows the story of a taisir, which is a Gaelic for someone who has his second sight. A guy called Angus Dew McNeill, who's cursed and blessed with this gift, and he must embrace this gift to prevent more ritualistic murders from taking place.
And I'll grab Unsolved again. Unsolved, the first in the Cal Lovett series, and it is about true crime podcaster haunted by his past and investigating the case of a missing woman who rode her horse into the woods, and the horse came out, but she did not.
Just quickly before we go, do you have publication dates in mind? Did you say January, Heather, for book 2?
January the 18th is Unburied.
I don't have a publication date for The Archer's Ghost yet, but I'm hoping it'll be out next year. Fingers crossed.
Fantastic. I really want to thank you both so much. Leslie's saying we'll have to let her know afterwards if we both have the same name in mind. I might let you know if we've got the same name. I won't tell you who it is, and I'm not going to let Fulton tell me if I'm right or not. Because I genuinely don't want to know. If whoever it is that if you do kill them off, I would rather find out in the moment as I'm sobbing and everyone in the house is thinking, is this a book or have we just had some really bad news? luckily, generally, it's always a book. Yeah, I get into kind of I really sob. I really go for it when something happens. But yeah, I'll leave it there because I could honestly ask you 20 more questions here, and I'm aware that you might have children to put to bed. So thank you both so much. Good luck.
Thank you
For the prizes. Absolutely thrilled for you both. Thank you both so much for joining us again. You'll be getting sick of me.
No, it's really hard for you to ask us another set of questions about our books, so thank you.
No, absolutely loved every minute, and it's nice getting to discuss the festival. One final question: any advice for people who find it difficult to attend festivals? Because I think the first time I went to one that was when it was really busy, I found it very overwhelming. People think, that because we do things on camera that we're really kind of confident and everything comes really easily, when you're just as likely to find me having 10 minutes in a quiet corner somewhere just to kind of think about it. So how do you deal with the busyness of it?
It's really hard, I think, and a lot of writers are quite introverted really at heart. I think just don't feel like, if you're a social butterfly and you want to do everything, do it, but don't feel like you have to, because you can go to the panels you want to do, you can go to the bar and have a chat for a bit, and then you can just go off and do a bit of writing in a coffee shop and recharge and then go back again. And I think there's a feeling sometimes that everybody knows everybody, and it's really not the case. There are a lot of people walking into a room thinking, oh God, who can I talk to? So just look for the friendly faces, I think. Look for the people that might be searching for a conversation just as much as you are.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly what to do. I'm not particularly gregarious either. I've struggled at some of these festivals as well. Walked into a pub and thought, I know nobody here, and I've just made a sharp exit. But yeah, Stirling is probably one of the more. Actually, I've not been to a huge number of festivals, but from what I've heard, Stirling is Bloody Scotland's one of the most friendly. So yeah, just come in. You're going to be meeting people who love books as well. So they're people. They're your tribe. So yeah, just come and have a chat.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're really not sure, stand in the corner with a book cover showing. Somebody will come and talk to you about that book. Guarantee it. I've only just come up with that one, but I will do that next time. Thank you both so much. Best of luck. And we look forward to finding out who the lucky winner is.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Sam. It's been a pleasure.
Sam.